Welcome back to the Pull a Pin podcast, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about small towns or just hometowns in general. Hit that. But before that, everybody, come on. Cue that intro for me. Now, I got to say something about small towns first before anything else. I want to say small towns and hometowns, but we got to light the ceremonious fire. Bada bing. Ooh, look at that. Chef's delight. I don't know why it's the chef. I got Diet Coke here. Caffeine free because the small group I do, people are like, we don't want caffeine so late. And so now I'm drinking them. Caffeine free. If you guys can't see, you're just listening. It's a gold can. Wow. Okay, everybody, I want to talk about your hometown. Man, I have a lot of thoughts about this, but before I say anything, let me just say, small town, as soon as you say that you're from a small town, dear Lord, people come out of the woodworks and they're like, small? I'll be like this. It's like, people say like, oh yeah, there's like, 15,000 people or whatever. They're like, you think that's small? You thought I was a town with 1,000 people. Then inevitably, this one always gets broken out every time. Someone's like, I was the proverbial one stoplight town. Please tell me you heard that. People always love to whip that. My town only had one stoplight. It's like, wow. That must make you really special. It gets on my nerves, obviously. Oh, man, it gets on my nerves. I just want to say to people, I'm like, I lived in the middle of nowhere in Alaska. I lived on a glacier. It took me 6 hours with a prop plane to go to Walmart. I don't care if your town is 2 people. Anyway, all that to say, I did grow up in a small town. Relatively small. I grew up in Pennsville, New Jersey, baby. Population 12, 13,000, around there. Something like that. And the cool thing is, I looked up, and over time, the census was like 2010 or something. Since then, it's lost about 700 or something people. It's been about the same size my entire life, which is 35 years. That means it's a thriving, growing town. People are just dying to leave. But we do have the Delaware Memorial Bridge right next to us, so I don't know if you should check that puppy out. Big old twin span. It's one of the biggest, I think, twin span bridges in the world or something. Don't quote me, but maybe. There's one whole bridge going one way and one whole bridge going the other way. And that leads to Wilmington, Delaware, Newcastle. Wow. Let me give you a little geography of the Northeast for those of you that aren't familiar. It's very compact. Very different than out here in Colorado, that's for sure. Back where I'm from, in Jersey, it's the westernmost point of New Jersey. Wow. The Delaware River, it's like over a mile wide. Maybe it's a bay. It's like right where it's almost becoming whatever. Who cares? So New York City is 2 hours north. Philly is about 35, 40 minutes north as west. So 2 hours to New York City, 40 minutes to Philly. Then it's 90 minutes to Baltimore. And then it's 2 hours to D.C. That is how tight everything is. D.C., Baltimore, Philly, New York City. Very compact area. Fascinating. But anyway, grew up in Pennsville, New Jersey. Now, I'll big dog all the small town people out there, okay? Here we go. Not only did I grow up there, I would work in Alloway, New Jersey. My brother worked there too. What is Alloway? Alloway is like 1,000 people out in the middle of the woods and stuff. We used to get inner city kids at Ranch Hope. It's like this residential facility for youth. Get them from inner cities and then plop them in Alloway, New Jersey. The kids would try to run away, and they would take... Oh, boy. They would try to run away sometimes, These kids were... there's a lot going on with these boys. And they would, run down the thing and then just start running. Eventually just start walking because you're not going anywhere. It's a bunch of trees and grass and some lakes and marshes and... It's like, bro, where are you going to go, man? You're going to get scared and want to come home. Anyway, Alloway. I was a camp counselor there for a little bit. 1,000 people. Whoa, there we go. If you want to get even smaller than that, we can go to Aldine or Elmer, Aldine, New Jersey. I don't think it's an actual town, but there's Elmer. This little thing is called Aldine in the area. It was so small. It's just a bunch of farms, but it was so small that right before the church went down to Aldine United Methodist Church, where that was the church at the time. I'm not Methodist, but that's the church at the time. There's a part where right before the church, there was a farm with cows, and they would do a cow crossing because the pasture was on the other side of the street. So there was a point where literally we'd have to wait, we have to wait and watch cows walk across the street to a pasture before going to church. Bam! Gotcha. I got you. I win the small town contest. Okay, now we've established that. No one gives a shit. No one cares. I don't care. I don't want to hear about your small town. JK. No, it is funny. But anyway, that's where I grew up. Oh, man. Pennsville. Small towns. See, there's a lot of tricks when it comes to small towns, hometowns in general. And I say hometown, too, in case you're from a place that's not as small, which who gives it doesn't matter. Whatever. I'm just saying, generally the area that you grew up in, that area, okay, where that's surrounded with like family, people that you know your whole life, all that kind of stuff. Talking about that kind of perspective. So today we're talking about small towns, but also hometowns. And what I really mean is the area that like you grew up in, where your family is, or your friends, or just the people that you've known your whole life, or whatever that might be. What that like home base is, whatever that is, regardless of the size. I think small towns are, have weird challenges. I'm sure other bigger cities do too, but small towns are an odd bird. Now we're going to talk about the small town discussion. The thing that's tough about small towns, and I can't speak to necessarily bigger places, but with small towns, like they can feel very depressed, And what's sad is it feels like a lot of people just like end up there. They didn't choose to live there. They just kind of ended up there, It's like they were there, their dad, their grandfather, and it's like that's okay, but it's just like they didn't really choose, and say this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. I think there's something really important, like in terms of what you should do about the area that you grew up in. That's healthy. I think one of them is this. I really think it's good to move away from where you grew up. I do, not permanently. Doesn't have to be permanently. I'm not saying that, but I think it's good for at least a season of life. I do. I also think that if you're going to stay in the town that you grew up and not go anywhere, please hear this. You have to establish your own identity outside of who you were growing up. Boy, oh boy, do I need to hear that, man. And so when you move, I know physically moving, it's easier to establish a new identity, but really becoming your own person in the area that you grew up is tough when you're surrounded by people that know you a certain way your whole life, That's why I think it's really healthy to at least spend some time out, but at least find a way to establish your own identity. So a few thoughts on moving away from a small town or where you grew up, hometown. One of the biggest things that it forces you to do is this. It forces you to rebuild community. Rebuild your family, kind of in a sense. They're not there anymore. They're not around you, And I think that it's difficult to really know how dramatic of an impact that has on you until you leave. And when you go from having this whole established, I understand that not all of us are close with our families, that there's this and drama, okay, whatever. But by and large, there's you don't realize how ingrained it is, the rhythm of life of being around people that have always known you and that you know and you love and you care about. You separate yourself and you're a whole new place. Let's say you don't even have the option of being with your family. You're out on your own. It's well, you can either move back home or you can figure it out. And if you want to really live a healthy life, you find community. But that requires a lot of initiative. It requires you putting yourself out there. It requires getting out there. And what's so great about that is this, is even though that's difficult, it's developing a really, really, really powerful skill in you. It's helping you learn and discover how to connect with more people and different kinds of people, how to cultivate new relationships, how to develop friendships and even deep friendships, and if you want to develop deep friendships, how to be vulnerable and be authentic and honest with new people. That experience, I think, is invaluable. Because when you leave home, man, it is lonely. It can be lonely. I remember when I first went to college, man, it was lonely. But by the grace of God, my boy Kyle, shout out Kyle, my man's, he's in PA. He's an Eagles fan. Hell yeah, go Birds. Go Birds. But man, like at first when I left, even just being in college and away from family, it was like, it was jarring how alone you can feel, you know? But you then find other people, you know, new friends and things, and these people become, in a sense, your family, your people, you know? The place where you feel like you belong. And that's a very valuable skill to learn. It's an adversity to be able to, like, it's very difficult feeling that sense of being alone. It's very difficult feeling like, man, I just like, or homesick. But if you can really take the steps to overcome that and develop new friendships, man, it just helps you grow socially. It helps you grow, like, mentally, intellectually, as you come in contact with different perspectives and different people. It teaches you how to handle like different conflicts, you know, how to make other people like laugh, how to enjoy time with like, new traditions, whatever it is. Like, it forces you to learn all those things because you're not in the same environment you've always been in. Very important. The other thing is it develops really a lot of skills in general because like you got to figure everything out, right? A lot of phone calls, I'm sure, to your parents and stuff when things don't work out. But it's like if you get a flat tire, you better figure out how to fix it. You can call AAA, but you know what? Why not learn how to fix it? You don't just call your dad and have him come and, you know? Like, I had to learn how to change a flat tire. And I can't tell you how many times, like, at least, this might not sound like a lot, okay? But probably like 5 times, one of my tires is blown out. And instead of sitting there and waiting and getting the tow or, it's like, you know, valuable for me, it's just been like, bam, change the tire. It's like, yes, I can do that. And that's healthy. That's a good thing, man. Learn how to take care of yourself. And you would be surprised, the littlest things you don't realize were just taken care of for you. Little things like even like your dentist or doctor, right? Just the places that you're used to going growing up, whether even just like a foods you're used to eating or, you know, familiar places to hang out, even though we didn't have that in Pennsville. I don't even know what I'm talking about. When you're around the people that you grew up with, it's easy to just constantly keep turning to them over every problem because it just provides an easy fix. But when you're on your own, man, and you really give yourself to that, it forces you to learn a lot of skills, a lot of ways to survive, you know. It makes you adaptable, you know. It really helps you, like, just become, like, you know, smarter, wiser, but also, like, gives you more street smarts. It makes you a more grounded human being, too. It's like you have more experiences and can relate to people more over, like, just normal aspects of life. It's good to have to figure things out, right? Like, it's good to figure out, like, oh, man, the taxes in the state are different, and that's going to affect my car in this way. Or it's good to figure out, oh, shit, I got to find a place to live, you know? And rent is this much, and that means this, and I got to move my furniture, and and I don't have my family or like anybody from I grew up with. And that leads to this, which I think is so good, too, is that it forces you to develop friendships with people where you're so close that you actually depend on them. And yes, you gotta trust people. Yes, I understand, like, you don't just depend on everybody, but it's like, it's good to develop healthy relationships to the point where you can rely on them, where you can trust them, where you can depend on them. That's a good thing. It's good to foster community and to get out there and, like, connect with other people. Like, it's just so healthy to get to a point, too, where you actually are, like, relying on others. Like, that really is, like, where you've really developed a healthy sense of community. It's like asking someone to take you to the airport. Those are the real ones. Diet Coke time. Yeah, sorry for all audio listeners out there. It forces you to really develop friendships that are so deep that you can actually depend on them. And this is a big one. This is a really big one. Develop friendships and connections with people outside of your family and the things you're used to that are so close that they can actually become the people that you turn to. Those new people can become the ones that you go to when you're feeling broken, when you're confused, when you're scared, whatever it is. Why is that important? It's like, it's important because we're limited, you know, where we grow up. Like, we're limited. We're just limited. No matter how big or small, whatever it is, if you're really around that family unit, that place where you grew up, like, you're going to get the same perspective, right? Constantly. And it could be a great perspective. Maybe that's all the advice you want. Okay, whatever. But it's like you're going to get the same opinions, perspective, whatever it is, from people that grew up in the same town that you did, right? What's so healthy about leaning on other people with new relationships is you get a whole different perspective on life. And finding the right people and the right relationships, gosh, it gives you an understanding about yourself and about the world that you never would have had before. Never. And that has been one of the most valuable things, is that it creates experiences that you never would have had otherwise. You're kind of forced into them, you know? And that whole process, it changes you. It really changes you. And if you give yourself to it and allow it to be a healthy thing in your life, like, it changes you for the better. It makes you so much more grounded, so much more knowledgeable, so much more wise. It's just a healthy experience, I feel. And I'll talk about, I'm not saying that everybody has to leave forever. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you can't stay where you are, but I am just saying that it's good to replicate these things no matter where you are. And it's a lot easier to do that if you at least move away for some period of time. Just my perspective. I know what it was like being from a very small town. I know what it was like being in an area where I was seen a certain way and kind of in a certain box, you know? As I got away from that, I don't think I realized how confined I felt in the box. But as I got away from that, slowly but surely, you kind of get out. You get out of that box. You begin to change in all the best ways. I know for me, and I didn't realize how restricting that environment really was in me developing into really a man. But man, I can remember what it was like first stepping away from where I grew up. I mean, it was so difficult and different and lonely and hard to cope with certain things and how to learn, how do you make friends and it was tough. It was tough. But I didn't just go back home and say, it's no, I pushed through and learned how to be an adult. And man, I'm so grateful because it's helped me to be who I am today, which is somebody that I feel can lead a family. Love them well and lead them well and help them experience life in a healthy capacity. And I've just seen that all of the perspectives and this and that and how different it is just from the place that I grew up. There's some similarities sometimes, but it can't even begin to compare with just staying in the same place. It's too different. It's too different. Now, my brother's a great example about doing small town right. He's a pastor. He's got 4 kids. Shout out Lila, Levi, Madison, and Max. I love those kids to death. They're the bomb. But he is still in Pennsville, next to my folks. But I always say that my brother did small town right. He is intentional about being there and where he is. He has connected very well with community around that area, but not just the people he grew up with, new people, Even though it's a very small area, there's still new people to meet, And he's been very intentional about making a difference in the community and all kind of things that I think he's doing. I think he's doing it right. I think he's illustrating a lot of these points in a healthy perspective. So there is a way to do it. There is. It just requires a lot of intentionality. There's another thing that's very important about it. I don't use an analogy. But before I do, we're going to play our favorite game, everybody, Splickety Lit. We talked about it in another episode, last episode, maybe, whenever I post this one. The way this game works, okay, everybody, listen up for all you audio listeners out here, so we can make this fun for everyone, because you can't see the ripping and roaring fire. You can't see me drink Diet Coke. Sorry, okay, here we go. Remember, this game, the answer, if it's a 2-word answer, it switches the first letter of both words, okay? So, I'm just going to read it. I can't think on the fly. So, okay. I grew up in, if someone said, what hometown did I grow up in? Pennsville, New Jersey. But the way Splickety Lit is played, get it? It's not lickety split, it's Splickety Lit. Instead of Pennsville, New Jersey, it'd be Nensville, Pew Jersey. Get it? Okay, the first letter of both words are swapped. And in the question, two words are swapped, two letters are swapped for 2 words in that as well. So let's just get into it. Which Jarvard Hopout was once the richest man in the world? Okay. Tick tock, tick tock, tick 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 tick. I'm gonna take a drink of Diet Coke while I'm waiting. If you guys can answer this, let me read it one more time for you. Which Jarvard Hopout was once the richest man in the world? Doo doo. All right, time's up. That would be Gil Bates. Gil Bates, do you get it? So if you would have said, it's like with Jeopardy. If you say like, if you just said like, oh, it's Bill Gates. It's like, no, it's like, who is Bill Gates? You have to say who is. With this game, you can't say, oh, it's Bill Gates. Wrong. You're wrong and you're bad as splickety lit. Go home. No, the answer is Gil Bates. Okay, we'll do one more. We'll get back to the topic at hand. Okay, one more question. Whose all-time best-selling flavor is Gary Charcia? Whose all-time best-selling flavor is Gary Charcia? Man, what could he be saying? Tick, tock, tick. Hurry up. It is, drum roll. Brrr. Oh, coffee, yes. It is Jen and Barry. Jen and Barry, get it? If you would have said Ben and Jerry, you would have been an absolute dipshit. It is Jen and Barry, everyone. Okay, let's clap it up for Lickety Split. Or Splickety Lit. Whatever the hell. All right, that's it. That's it for that round, everybody. Come back next week. Whoops. Oh, well. Last thing I want to say about hometown, small town, all these things. This is a big one, okay? Imagine an island. Imagine being on an island, and then imagine getting on a boat. And then imagine that boat going out to sea. Imagine yourself on the boat. Whatever the boat is, if it makes that noise. Whatever boat you imagine. It could be a pirate ship, too. Imagine you're looking at the horizon. Wow. But imagine you turn around and you look back at the island. Probably already know where I'm going with this. Look back at the island. Well, what happens? First you get on the boat and you see the island. Then it goes out to sea more, and you're like, okay, the island, what? It looks a little smaller. You go out more, a little smaller. Smaller, until it's just a little dot. What does that mean? It means your perspective of the place you were is changing. Whoa, deep stuff. It means your perspective is changing. And in this case, it's becoming a lot smaller until eventually it disappears over the horizon. And nothing but ocean. Dangerous. But that is really important to realize. Like, when you get away, even taking just time, like even a week, man, just getting out of town. I know when I leave town sometimes, man, it's like, whoa, it just gives you perspective. More context. Big city. Imagine New York City looking straight up. Now, screw that. Philadelphia, baby. Imagine being in Philly, looking up at some of the buildings in Philly. And you're like, oh, man, this city is cool, baby. I might get shanked. I don't know. But at least I like the Eagles. You look at the higher buildings and things. It's like you step away from the city. You don't fully see the skyline, but you see the buildings from a different perspective. Drive further, and before now, you're just like seeing the skyline. And seeing the skyline of Philly is way different from being in Philly. Walk away from Philly enough, you won't even see it on the horizon. That's what happens in life. Your perspective changes when you leave somewhere. It does. It happens with a lot of things. You're just not in the day-to-day minutia that you've always been in your whole life. You meet new people. You have new experiences. Whatever it might be. I think it's very important, too, that if you do move, like really like make an attempt to like really live your life. Don't just like, passively like really embrace wherever you are. Embrace it. But the perspective shift is enormous. It can't be overstated. I know for me, when I left my hometown, of 11, 12,000 people, I lived in places that were like, I have never lived inside a city, but I know there's like Fairfax outside of D.C., which was a much bigger area. Virginia Beach, a lot more going on. I did live like in Atlanta for a little bit, way bigger. And Springs here is almost 500,000, which is not massive in terms of cities, it might seem, but when you grew up in town that I did, it's a big difference. But the biggest thing is that just the experiences I've had and the people I've met and all of these things, the journey that I've had, it's been possible because of the physical space created, and for me, just having to figure things out on my own. And all of this has dramatically changed my perspective. I just look at, like, you see enough things, you see enough skylines, you see enough islands, right? you start to look at the island that you came from differently. And I think that that's a really good thing. And I think that if you allow that to shape you in a positive and a healthy way, it makes you a much more well-rounded person. Can't talk right. Perspective. It gives you perspective. Wow. Okay. I do want to mention our sponsor for the video today. Give me a second here. Sponsor for today's video is Post-it Notes. Post-its. Post-it. It's all right. These guys were beating down my doors to, for all of you that are listening, I have a neon green Post-it note backed with a pink and an orange one. That is yellowish green. Yes. Holding in my hand. It's larger though. They're larger ones. They're 4 inches, 4-inch squares. Wow. Okay. Well, what else? I got to do a little ad read here. I apologize. They've been on my ass all week. I'm like, guys, I will take care of it. Okay. Post-its. They are super sticky. Super collants. Is this Spanish? I know what I'm talking about. All right. Well, there's a note. Here we go. Adhesive may mark some surfaces or lift inks. Colors may bleed when wet. It may not be suitable for use on delicate papers or surfaces. Cleaning and conditioning products may affect adhesion. Test before using. That's a weird ad read they gave me. I'm not sure why they wanted to pick that verbiage, but Post-its. Today's sponsor, making Pull the Pin a reality. Ugh. Guys. Well, I've talked a lot, but I don't care. Okay. The last thing I'll say in all of this is primarily this. That with the small town you may be from or hometown, or whatever it is, I think that getting away from it is really good for a lot of different reasons that I've already said. Building community, meeting new people, new experiences, all the things you have to learn, the survival skills, everything. A new identity that you have to establish, perspective, all of those things. Now, I'll say if you don't leave hometown or small, whatever it is, that's okay as long as that's intentional. But I think all of those things that I mentioned are still important to cultivate and develop. So even if you are from maybe a healthy hometown, please, you got to hear this. You have got to establish your own identity. You have to be your own person. You can't just be the person you always were growing up. You have to become something different. You have to find who you really are and make decisions independent of other people's perspectives. Choose the life that you want to live. Truly, really do that. Find ways to give yourself perspective. But don't just end up in where you grew up. Don't just end up there, okay? Choose it and be intentional. There's a way to do small town right, but you got to be really intentional about establishing who you are. Because people will treat you like, oh, it's little Johnny. Little Johnny. Try to change. That's one huge challenge of a small town. Hometown. It's like you try to change and you try to be somebody different or whatever. Or you're like trying to grow as a human being. And it's like, aren't you little Johnny? Aren't you Sally? Wait a minute. It's like you're supposed to fit in the box that I've always had you in your whole life. It's like, get off me. I am my own man. It's hard to break free from that. It is. I needed physical space, man. Shout out to all my family. I'm not putting anybody down. I'm just saying it is difficult to establish your own identity. And I had to leave physically to do that. Well, that's all I got. That's all I got. Thank you today again to the sponsor, Post-its. Thank you again, Post-its, for sponsoring this episode. Splickety lit. It says you'll bath your lut off. Splickety lit. Always just providing a good time. Grateful for Splickety lit. And that's the end of this episode, everyone. Love, peace, and chicken grease, as my childhood friend Jordan used to say. Later.